Peter Niebuhr is my very first podcast guest. He's 42 years old, married, has 2 daughters, and lives in Silkeborg-Denmark. Peter is the founder of Outgrowth Partners since 2020. In this role, he supports lifestyle fashion brands with their growth and export business. But Peter is also shareholder from Textile Logistics Denmark, which he started in 2017, and House of Ecom 2021. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Very happy to be here.
Very exciting. It's the first podcast in my life, and yours too.
Nice to be here.
Yeah. Peter and I met in July 2015, 7 years ago, on a very last bread and butter in Berlin, a famous international fashion fair at Berlin Tempelhof Airport. I finished my working that day and I enjoyed a glass of wine while I was sitting, or more laying, on a sitsack in front of a food truck together with somebody of my network. At that time, Peter, you were working for Knowledge Cotton Apparel as their international sales manager.
Exactly.
Do you remember this moment?
I remember this moment and many other moments in Berlin at these fairs. There were fantastic times there. I think it was maybe even better than fairs today. It was a place where we met customers and we met different people and we networked a lot and got to know the right people, and also there where we met. So I think it was a fantastic venue that I personally miss a little bit today.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It was not just a fair, it was like connection with fashion people all over the world. Huh?
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It was a good time. Yeah.
I remember we shared our contact details, and in the evening you called me and invited me for dinner.
Yes.
In a very nice, cool restaurant in the east of Berlin.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember the setting and how it was?
No, I remember very much that it was a time where I was very open-minded in terms of meeting new people, and I was becoming very aware that network in Europe in terms of the fashion business was extremely important. And I remember the minute I met you and you told me what you did and what you do, I thought it was you were an important connection, and we talked, and as very often when Dutch and Danish people meet, we have a good communication because mentality-wise we're not so far from each other. So yeah, we met, and I think, okay, why not invite you for the team dinner?
Yeah.
To meet also the owners of the company and also my colleagues. And as far as I remember, it was quite a nice evening, and we connected, and gave us opportunity to work a little bit together.
And we kept contact since ever then, huh? Yeah. We followed a lot of other fairs as well in Denmark and with other companies as well.
Yes.
And of course, I knew you from the moment from Knowledge Cotton. I had no idea what you did before, but after we stayed in contact, you had a whole bunch of other work experience in various roles. And after your study of business college, you worked in London, you worked in Hamburg and various places in Denmark.
Yes.
Can you bring us back in the time when you studied in Silkeborg, your business college?
Yeah.
What kind of person were you? And what were your dreams when you were younger?
I think I had very big ambitions and dreams, but when I went to school every day and also to business school, I didn't really live after this. I think back in school time I was a little bit lazy.
Really?
Yeah, I really was. I have to admit that I was probably the guest of the week in the business school. You know, I was there as little as possible. So I was maybe a bit in a time where, in one way, I was very ambitious. I wanted to do a lot, but in another way, I didn't manage to focus and to do what was important at that time. So I guess a little bit immature in that way, but I learned later that I had to learn new stuff all the time. So.
You were always interested in fashion when you were in school. How did you arrive in the fashion?
Yeah, actually I grew up with it because actually my grandfather and my father also was in the business for many, many years. So it was I grew up seeing my father create various companies and struggling and having good times and bad times running his own company in the production and fashion business. So I kind of grew up with it, and I guess as many other young guys, when they see their father do something, they want to do the same. So this was more or less the way it started.
Yeah.
So the ambitions to do what my father did, and then obviously later on it grew into something totally different. But still it came from seeing what he did, and I saw him travel around Europe also and meeting interesting people and doing business, and so I wanted to do the same.
When you were on your education in 1998, I believe, you did your study and you start working as an internship in Harrods. How did you find this opportunity? Because I think it's nice to start working in Harrods.
As a real story was after the first year in business school, I didn't do very well. I wasn't there a lot, so I was actually, to be quite honest, I was close to be thrown out of the school because I was maybe there 80% of the time, and I was supposed to at minimum be there maybe 90% of the time. So I was able to move on to second year business school, but I felt that I had no motivation. And in that way, my parents have always been quite open-minded. So they said, do what you want to do, just do it, do something that you want to do, but do it 100%. You can't just do it halfway. And then, as far as I remember, I had some friends who was a year or two, maybe 2 years older than me. They just came back from a year in London, and I met them, and they told me that it was actually an opportunity to find an apartment, relatively, not a nice apartment, but cheap apartments, and live there. It was actually realistic to get a job there. So what I did, after summer holidays, I took a job to earn a little bit of money, and basically I went to London without anything. I rented one of these apartments. I remember they were around £250 a month or something like this back then. And then I moved in there, and I walked around for 1 or 2 weeks to try and find a job at various hotels, and got a job as a luggage porter and worked there 2 months maybe. And then one night I went to one party. Back then it was called Scandinavian Nights, where all the Danish people met up in London. And I was very, very lucky to meet a guy there who was an department manager in Harrods menswear department. And we had a beer and we talked, and he helped me to get a job there. So that's the way I got in, actually.
So was it you did a young fashion department, I believe?
Yeah, I started up in it's called Wayne Menswear. I think it's actually still there, the 4th floor in Harrods. And I started up being responsible for folding Calvin Klein t-shirts and Levi's jeans.
At that time already?
Yes. So this was my responsibility, and I did that for 8-9 months. And obviously I worked with a lot of people who was a lot older than me, and they teach me a lot of things, among others also about retail, but also about pubs and how you act in a pub, and how to have the best places in London, where to go and party and all this stuff. So it was a nice year, but also a little bit. I was very young. I think I was back then. I was 18 or 19. So it was quite tough sometimes to be on your own, but still a good. As far as I remember, it was a good time.
Yeah. And after you have done like very many different jobs in different companies, because you worked in menswear, women's wear, children, production, private label. Yes. So you have done a lot of different companies. So what was like the job you remember best in sense of what you really, really liked to do?
I think I have 2 jobs which meant a lot to me. I think the first job that meant a lot was definitely when I got a job as a sales representative for a shoe brand, where I was driving around in North and East Germany and selling shoes to retailers, because this was basically what I always wanted to do, to be a sales guy, but then to do it in the German market.
We speak about Vagabond.
Vagabond, exactly, yeah. And that was I was also relatively young when I got the job, and it was a big challenge for me. It was like the first 6 months, as I remember, it was almost like I didn't make it, because I thought it was a big pressure to speak, to go and visit these key accounts and to speak German and to fix everything. I was very much on my own. I didn't have any colleagues really. I was stationed in Hamburg, and the company was in Denmark. But I worked there for 2 years in Germany, and kind of got the feeling that, okay, I can do this, I can develop if I work hard. So I think this was extremely important for me also, because I got to know a lot about the German culture and obviously the language. So this was important. And then later on...
sorry, what was the difference with the culture of the German guys and the Danish? What did you learn from it?
There was a lot, and I think when I think back at the time, I thought back then that it was a complicated culture in Germany because they were more... I thought maybe back then they were more rigid, more conservative, and a bit more tough in terms of business. What I learned later on is actually that to work with German and Germany in general is maybe sometimes more easy because in many ways a deal is a deal and what you see is what you get, where in Denmark sometimes it's more difficult and more complicated. So I learned a lot about the language, about the mentality and how to speak to people up and down and to the sides, and it was in many ways a great challenge.
And how did you find Vagabond, or Vagabond found you?
I found Vagabond. Back then, I think it was back at the time where jobs were still in the newspaper. And I saw in a big Danish newspaper that they were looking for salespeople in Germany. And I wrote a letter and I got the job. So that's the classic way back then, I guess. And
the brand fit with you as a person?
I think back then it probably didn't fit super well. Because I was very fashionable again. I was very much into fashion. Back then Vagabond was very more like basic, and it became more fashionable later, I think. But it didn't mean a lot to me if it was a brand that I would wear. It just meant a lot to me that I got the opportunity to go and work with sales in that way. So that was cool for me.
And after Vagabond, why did you decide to leave Vagabond? What happened?
Actually, as far as I remember, I was offered a job in Denmark. Actually, also for Vagabond, but in selling in Denmark also, in the Danish area. So actually, I stayed in the company, and then I did the same job, but I did it in Denmark. So that was also great to come home, closer to family. But obviously, the challenge wasn't that big as in Germany, because in Germany it was both the mentality and the culture and the language. And in Denmark was more the selling. Yeah. And after Vagabond, you moved to Kabugi, like Legoware. Yes. Yeah.
And this was kidswear. I think this is like something totally different.
Yeah,
kidswear.
It was, and the job was also totally different. It was an export manager job where I was supposed to build up new markets. And as far as I remember, it was the Eastern markets, Eastern Europe. It was Russia, Poland, and Czechia, and also actually Holland, I think, and Belgium was my responsibility to build up from zero. So I remember I was very proud to get the job because it was my first manager job, and I remember I thought I was very well paid, but in many ways my ability as a salesperson didn't really come into play in that role. So it was more like trying to find agents, and back then I didn't have a network in Europe at all.
Did you find agents at that moment?
I found agents, yeah, but I don't remember as very successful, to be honest, for either me or for Kabuki.
Yeah.
But it was an okay time, but it was not the perfect time, not the perfect work for me. And I also remember after Kabuki, actually, I took a short break to think about what I wanted to do, and did very small jobs for a period until I found the right job.
You think a lot about your career. Huh? You are somebody who is really thinking about your next step and about new education, or you did NPL education as well.
Yes.
So you often think about next steps in your career as a person?
I'm definitely an overthinker. I think a lot about stuff, but when I look back into my career and looking into the decision I've made, I don't always think I've been taking the right decisions.
You think you did, or you didn't?
I don't think I always took the right decisions, but that also just shows that you can think a lot about things and you can calculate a lot, but in the end there's also a certain part of life which are or maybe luck, or maybe what will happen. You'll meet right people or wrong people, and so obviously I think it's important to think about your choices, but don't overthink it. Sometimes just do it and move on and take a chance. Yeah,
what was your best step in your career? What you are really proud of that you have done it?
I think I think the times where I've been under pressure, maybe stopped in a job and need to find something new, and the periods where I've been a bit difficult, I think I've been quite good at finding creative solutions and finding ways of making money in tough periods and to basically to hack it in difficult times. Yeah. I think that's probably, I don't think I have one situation where I say, okay, this was the best one, but I think I'm quite proud of that, even though there have been tough times, that I've managed to do them.
So you worked for Knowledge Cotton as we met.
Yes.
This was the company where you worked longest in your career, because you had a lot of jobs where you worked like 1 year or 2 years. But this was a company where you stayed longest.
Yeah.
What was the reason that you worked longest, and what was the success in this company that you stayed there so long?
I think the reason that I worked there longest is that the brand and the company at that time was on a journey where everything was developing, so there was room for development and room for me. I started as a sales representative and became a sales manager for Scandinavia, and in the end I was head of sales and sales manager internationally. So I think it was good for me to be in a place where I felt that if I did well, I could grow and I could also get bigger responsibility. And I think it was at that time it was perfect for me to be in a place where it was within menswear, which I knew very well, and it was also a quite international company, because we were already, when I started working, in a lot of markets. So I felt quite home in that company. It was also a family-owned company. It still is a family-owned company. So I think I felt kind of safe, and therefore I also developed quite fast in that period. Yes.
And you grew a lot of customers. Can you tell also a little bit about doing business with customers, like funny situations, or like how you grow the business from a certain amount to a higher turnover?
Yeah, I remember it's now, I think, since I started there in 2010, and just from 2010 until now, online business has been growing a lot. So I remember going to, for example, the big online platforms with a budget on a certain level. And
like which platform?
Could
like
be Zalando.
Zalando?
For example, go and visit them and expect a certain budget, and then you come home with an order which are 2, 3 or 4 times as big. And because at that time, we didn't expect a lot when we went to have meetings with these customers, but we got big orders. I also remember this sustainability part, which was in 2010. Not a lot of people were talking about the sustainable fashion.
Because this brand was sustainable.
Knowledge Cotton is one of the leading menswear brands within sustainable fashion in Scandinavia and maybe also in Europe. So it was definitely an interesting time, because we felt like we had something that was a little bit unique. In many ways that opened doors for Knowledge Cotton Apparel at that time, and it was fun to be part of that journey. It was really good times.
You had also your partners in different countries and agents like Holland or Benelux.
Yes.
And can you tell a little bit about these agents? Were they very much? Did they understand the concept very well, and were they very positive about the company, or?
I think some did very well understand the concept and some didn't. But I think eventually they did. But I think most of them, Knowledge Cotton was quite lucky to get the right agents relatively fast. And I think also for me to go and visit these agents and to especially trying to manage these agents was quite educational. And also it also teach me that there was a difference between Holland and Belgium, and also German mentality. I knew that already, but now I got like an opportunity to learn the practical way to how to deal with an agent in Finland. Of course, it's different to deal with an agent in Holland or in south of Germany. And also for the first time, I was relatively young. I also needed to manage people who was a bit older than me, and that was also, I remember, a challenge, but a good thing to learn.
And I remember the guys from Holland. We are in Holland now.
Yeah.
So were they good with Knowledge Cotton? They were a good partner for Knowledge Cotton?
They did well, as far as I remember. And I also remember visiting them a lot of times and also being on the road with them, visiting customers.
Yeah.
So I have good memories about Roderick and
Roderick,
boys.
I know him, yeah.
I haven't talked with them for a while actually, but I'm sure they're doing well still.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can remember. I know him as well, and I think he's a very good guy for Knowledge Cotton. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You worked also a very short time, though, for Bestseller Group, for the brand Selected.
Yes.
I think it's remarkable that the Danish fashion brands are so successful global.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering why they are so successful internationally.
Yeah.
Because your country has only like 5.9 million people.
Yes.
But you have huge brands like DK Company. IC Company is not there anymore, but they were really big as well. And I think Bestseller is number one in the market, but they do big business in China.
Yeah.
What is the reason that they are so successful? What is the secret from Danish brands?
I think you can split it up in two. I think Bestseller is a story on its own, probably, I would say. But the rest of the companies is I think the Danish mentality is a good mix of creative mentality and knowledge about design, and then also a commercial mindset. And when you look south towards France and Italy and Spain, most of them are very good at the creative side, and they can create nice products, nice design products. But in Denmark, I think we are aware that we need to mix commercial mindset with the creative mindset, and I think also the respect between the creative people and the commercial people is very much there in Denmark in the Danish companies. And I think if you put two different mindsets together and they respect each other, then you can be successful. So I think in Denmark we know what it takes. We know that you can't just do a business only being commercial or only being design. You need to find the right partners.
Yeah, I heard once from the owners of DK Company, I asked the question to them and they said, we have the creativity of Italians and we have the organization of Germans.
Yes.
And this is why the Danish brands are so good.
Yeah, I think that's quite good said.
That's maybe a good said.
Yeah. That's a good way of saying it.
Yeah. So in your work you have done these different roles, and you were like a key account manager, sales manager, you did production. So what is your key quality as a person?
I think what I like to do and what people like to do is probably what we also do best. I like to connect with people. I like to create network. I like to do business. I like to see opportunities and grab them and to get the best out of them. And then I like to get ideas and then also to be able to actually to execute them afterwards, actually to do the things, not just talk about it. So I think it's a mix of maybe creativity and then a business mindset, which I combine. And then I like to say that I can talk with all kind of people in all kind of ways. So I hope this is people see me this way as well.
Do you have somebody in the fashion industry who you see as your who believed in you, who gave you opportunities, and for this reason you could grow in your career? You have an example of one person which you adore, which you...
Yeah, I think I've been lucky to meet a lot of people on my way which has believed in what I've been doing, and also, but when I think back, I think the person who has probably meant the most for me career-wise is definitely my father, because he's been my mentor also, and he's also been active in the business while I've been active in the business, meaning that he's been on point with a lot of stuff. So he's been a good sparring in terms of my career, and then I think also that all the people who have hired me at some point have believed in me. So I think there's not so many individual persons, but I think the first time I got from retail to wholesale, there was somebody who hired me there to believe in me, and also when Vagabond took me in very young and so on, I think it was a big chance, and I think I'm happy to get the chance there. So you need chances, and you need somebody who believes in you early in career, maybe too early sometimes, to be able to grow as a person. There will never be the perfect time to get a certain job or get a certain challenge. So I think in many ways I've been lucky, but also, as you see in my resume, I've been in many places relatively short time. So also made mistakes maybe. Different.
You had also a role as a manager, so you also were teaching other people as a manager. So what were like the learnings you wanted to give to your team?
I think when I've been working as a manager, it's mainly been within sales. So it's very much been, and I think I have what I as a person, I'm very much a person. If I work with very structured people, I try to make them more creative. Mm-hmm. And I work with very creative people, I try to make them more structured. So I'm a in-between person, I think. Mm-hmm. So I can a little bit change after the circumstances I'm in. So when I work in companies where it's very creative and unstructured, I try to become, the more grown-up person who try, okay, now we need to structure that and please be on time, and these things. And when it's in a more structured company, I try to challenge status quo a little bit in terms of how we're doing stuff.
And the people you worked with, like if you had young people in your team, were they better when they left the company as they came? They learn a lot?
I hope so. I really hope so. You should probably ask them. Yeah.
Yeah. In a certain moment, after all these successful companies, you decided to start on your own. There was a certain moment.
Yes.
What was the reason that you decided to started your own company, your own business, like Textile Logistics was the first, I believe, you done?
Yeah. Textile Logistics is actually a very special story because I stopped working with Knowledge Cotton in 2017, mm-hmm. And it was a great journey with Knowledge Cotton Apparel, but it ended in a little bit in a bad way. We disagreed about some stuff, so I stopped working there, and it was back then that decision. So and that became official in the company that I was stopping, and there was some employees who came to me and said, okay, this is not fair, we think it's a bad decision, let's do something together. And I guess this is what everybody dreams about when you stop in a company, that people wants to do something with you. So I was really proud about this, but the thing was we didn't have a plan or anything actually. But we met up a couple of times and had a coffee and talked about what could we do. And I met up with at that time the warehouse manager Torkel, who ran the warehouse at Knowledge Cotton Apparel, and we talked about, and it was actually it was his idea to say, okay, why don't we do a warehouse where we can where brands can outsource.
And you said yes, why not? A warehouse.
And I said this is a brilliant idea. But and then we started talking about it, and we calculated. And you should never calculate when you start a business, because it's always a bad idea when you start calculating. So we
What do you mean? Why?
Because in theory nothing is possible, and in practice, everything is possible. So I learned that also to say, okay, if you look very black-white on the numbers,
So it doesn't mean that you did more than what you calculated, or
no? What actually means is that we tried to make a budget on if you should start a warehouse company or a logistic company, how much it would cost, and we came to, I don't remember the amount, but it was so much money we didn't have it. So we left the idea, and then we kept contact, and then suddenly I learned that a logistic company close to where we live was bankrupt. So we gathered Torkel and our third investor, Michael, who to a meeting at night, and I think we called this the lawyer who was responsible for the bankruptcy. The short version is then we bought the company for a very low amount of money, and woke up the next morning thinking, oh my God, what have I done? I don't know anything about logistics.
Exactly.
But I was fortunate because we have Torkel who knew everything about it, and he is today running the company, mm-hmm. and is the CEO, and Mikkel and I is co-investors and co-owners and sitting in the board. So
maybe you had a big vision, because like pick and pack is one of the key things at this moment with the internet business.
It's been quite a good investment.
Yes.
And it's been a fantastic journey the last 5-6 years. So I'm very proud to be part of this.
So you have still 23% of the shares in this company.
Around 23%.
Yeah. And now 120 employees, what I understood?
Yeah, we have, obviously there's a lot of people, when you're busy you need to do the packing. So I think we're about 15-20 people in the office, and then the rest of the people are doing the pick packing in 4 different warehouses, now around 40,000 square meters.
Mm-hmm. So you seem to like somebody who loves to work for a company or a brand, and now in startup phases. So if I look at all your jobs, you're always with companies in like an early beginning. So you seems like a hunter to build something new, build something from the scratch.
Yeah, I think.
Do you recognize that in yourself?
Yeah, I do that. I think that motivates me the most, because I think to create something from almost nothing and give it life. I think that makes sense. For me, I would never fit in a big organization, a corporate organization. I'm not like that. Also when you look at my resume, you'll see I didn't go to school a lot. So I'm not the first choice for either for Maersk or one of the big companies in Denmark. They would never call me. So I need to find out to do something else to live off. And I think for me it gives a great feeling when you can actually create something and see something growing.
Yeah. And you seem to be under kind of learning new things all the time, because like in 2021 you became advisory board member of Lacor.
Yeah.
So this is totally something new again. Different from sales, different than logistic, different than starting an own company. So you became an advisor.
Yeah.
So how did this happen?
Yeah, but Lacor is a menswear brand, also based out of Denmark, and the journey that they're on is relatively young now, and they do well. And I saw obviously a match between the journey I've been on with Knowledge Cut, for example, and with other menswear brands, and where they are now. So, and I don't remember how it happened actually, but I think we were in dialogue about something else, and I think as far as I remember, we agreed that I could contribute as a role like this. So this is very interesting for me, and in general, what I do now as a business and as a person, I love these small businesses and I respect them a lot, because I know how difficult it is to start from zero. So when I can help these smaller businesses grow and become more healthy, I'm very, very proud to get the opportunity actually.
Yeah, because like Textile Logistics was the first where you became a partner in.
Yeah.
Then in 2021 you became co-owner of House of Ecom.
Yes.
Like you became a shareholder of the board.
Yeah.
And can you tell a little bit more about this company and what you're doing?
Yeah. Basically, House of when I started Outgrowth and Partners, we'll come back to this maybe, but this is a consultancy helping fashion brands to grow. I can help fashion brands to grow within wholesale and within resale and within all the things I've been doing through the years. But I also know that online business is very, very important. And if I want to be a consultancy in the fashion business, I should be able to offer this as well. And I don't have big knowledge within IT or within online business. Obviously, I've done business with onliners, but I didn't have a lot. So when I heard about House of Ecom company, I learned about this actually from Torkel also in Textile Logistics. Then I set up a meeting with them and said, okay, I have a network within the fashion industry, and you want to be in the fashion industry, why? And you can help me also be a part of my business, so I can actually offer this service to my customers. So that was a super match. So I invested a little bit in this company through Outgrowth Partners. So and this has been
a part of Outgrowth Partners, because this is the company you started recently, like in 2020.
Yeah.
Actually in the COVID period. This is part of your business of Outgrowth Partners.
I now, since very recently, solely owned Outgrowth Partners, and Outgrowth Partners owns a percentage of the shares in House of Ecom.
Okay.
So this is the way we have chosen to do it. So it's separated 100% from Textile Logistics.
Yeah. And can you tell, because this is your company, what you are currently doing, Outgrowth Partners. So this is you started this in 2020 during the COVID period.
Yes.
Can you tell the reason for the name? So why you choose the name, and what you are doing as a company?
The name is a challenge every day, because people can't spell it and they can't pronounce it on email. But apart from that, the idea about Outgrowth and Partners is that the word outgrowth is a mix of outsourcing and growth, of course. So what the idea about is that I think we can help people grow by outsourcing, because many of these small and medium-sized companies that we work with, they don't have the capacity or the financials to invest in, for example, a sales manager or e-commerce manager. So we would like to help them to grow on smaller investments made more often than instead of bigger investments made not so often. So this should make it how can you say accessible for everybody to have a good e-commerce sparring or sales manager, sales sparring within sales and e-commerce. So this is the vision of the company to help these small and medium-sized design companies in Denmark.
And not only fashion, it's lifestyle business. So
until now it's been mainly fashion,
fashion,
but lifestyle business in general.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have my network is better and the best in within the fashion industry.
Yeah.
So, but could also be lifestyle business. Yeah.
So, and can you mention an example? So, what kind of service you offer?
Yes.
Like if you have a brand.
Yeah.
So, how does it work?
Yeah.
What do you offer them?
First of all, when I start working for a brand, I work. Obviously, I can work. I can work remote. I can work interim with them and be in their company.
Mm-hmm.
But we always start by a process where we discuss status quo and how they're doing and what they want to do, and also very important why they want to do it. Mm-hmm. Because I think everybody who owns a company, they want to grow. Because they've learned in the Danish business school that they should grow, but I also sometimes put in the question and say why we should grow and how should we do it, and start a little bit more further behind than normal, because then I'm certain when we start the process that they really want to do it this way. Mm-hmm. So an example could be that we start with a company and they say they want to enter the German market, and they are, for example, and I say, okay, why should the German consumers buy your brand? They say, okay, we are a sustainable brand, and I tell them back, okay, maybe you are sustainable in your mind, but your product is not sustainable. So I help them, advising them, for example, to get the right certifications and being ready for German market. And then afterwards, I help them find the right agents, or I can also try and set up meetings with the right accounts to start with in German markets. And this whole process is maybe 6-9 months. It can also be a bit shorter. But instead of being there every day and they have to pay me a full salary, maybe I'm there once a week and advising them.
And they pay you a salary, or they pay you like a percentage of the turnover?
They pay me normally. They pay me per hour. So so we start by discussing, okay, how much time do you need from me a week? Do you need 10 hours, 20 hours, 5 hours? And then like we're either remote or in the company. And then we fix this cost for a period of time, and we set some aims for what we should achieve together. And that's the way we work, really.
And which kind of brands? Can you mention some brands, or is this like a secret? Or
no, I'm not so keen on mentioning the name of the brands, but I can say until now it's both with menswear and female ladies wear, and a little bit also for children and kids wear. So, yeah. but it's been typical Danish Scandinavian brands. So it can be. It's not so much to do with the segments. It's more about what they want to do, and we can work for 3 months together. We can work for 12 months together.
And you work like with subscriptions, that they pay like a certain amount per month, like what you see like in the internet business, that you take like subscriptions, or this is not what you're doing?
Not really, because it's more paid per hour, but it's also, I guess, a kind of subscription. But it's also, until now, the jobs I've done it's not been so focused on 1 or 2 projects. It's also being a part of where the business are. So it's difficult to make a plan and say these are the 3 points we need to achieve. I'm also very fast in more companies. I'm also typically also sitting in the what's it called, the leadership board, or a part of the management. So this is also part of it. So
and you work with like different partners to give service to these brands.
Yes.
So what kind of partners do I have to think about? Is it like the logistic and the e-commerce, or are there more?
It can also, for example, within sustainability, we have a company.
Sustainability,
where I work with them, and I can't even say I work with them because there's no finance or no money between us. I just advise the companies to use them because I've used them many times myself. I know they can do what they needs to be done in terms of these sustainable certificates, etc. That's a good example. Very good partners. So I know when I give them a job, I know they can fix it. And I also have partners within platform sales, and obviously House of Ecom also with running B2C business. We have the logistics center. Logistic company we can take over all the business from a brand, but we can also just help with individual cases on getting the garments home in time, or anything else. So that's also a great network. And then I also work a lot with clearing goods and stocks from for the companies. That's what everybody wants all the time, to clear stock from last season to a high.
So it's like 360-degree service. You can offer different elements.
Mostly within, where I do the things myself, is mostly within sales and exports and connecting people and recruitment. But in terms of the partners I have, it can be everything really. Yeah. And if I don't have a partner for what they wish, I can find one.
Yeah.
So this is, and also the network I have from 15, 20 years back is important here, because if they need something, it can also be the right accountant, and it can also be the right bookkeeper, and say, okay, we need this, and then I know this guy. So, so I try and contribute as much as possible. Yeah.
And what I read is that you are successful from the first moment, and this is, of course, really amazing, because you started in a very difficult area of the fashion industry in the COVID period. So how did you manage to be profitable from the first moment?
I think first of all I didn't put my cost too high. This is important.
The cost low,
I keep the cost low, and then I think I was I didn't the setup I have. I don't need so many customers to have a good business, and I was just lucky to have enough to do, and also a big an important thing for this concept I do is also sometimes to have the opportunity to say no to a task if you don't think you can contribute, or you don't think the match is there between a customer and me. Then obviously once you should no thank you, and this is also important for the image as a consultant, that you don't take everything in.
Yeah. So you say also sometimes no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can't solve everything.
No, so, exactly. So you have a lot of experience now, more than 20 years. You have a lot of commercial and a lot of interpersonal skills you have done the last years. If I would call somebody of your clients, what would they say that is your best skill from the client point of view?
I think the network.
The network.
Yeah, I think what they pay for really is, of course, me trying to make some business which are profitable for them. But I think the network in Europe, within all the people I've met through the years, and then maybe the ability to see opportunities.
So what is the next step for your company, for yourself?
Yeah.
So now you are 42?
Yes.
So let's say for the next 20 years, what is your vision, your plan?
I want to spend as much time as possible with work. Stuff that I like to do. I would like to, when I finish my career, I would like to look back to actually and have made some kind of difference also for other companies. And then some short term, I'm very much now looking into recruitment in the fashion business, like you also do.
You follow me, yeah?
I follow you, exactly. Yeah. So I think there's a big market for this, because what I've seen last 12 months in many companies is that, first of all, right now obviously it's difficult to find the right people, because there is a lot to do and less people to do the work. But also I think in the fashion business, recruitment and hiring people in the fashion business is so much different from other businesses. And many of the recruiters I know in Denmark, they come from other businesses and with other point of views, which are great in other businesses. But in the fashion business, you need to understand certain things to understand how people's mindset are and how it is to work in a certain company, and what is the difference between working in a small and a big company, etc.
And they should fit with the brand.
And if it should fit with the brand. And if you look at my resume, I've almost worked in all the companies in Denmark.
You've worked all the Danish companies. You know them all.
So I've tried to onboard as an employee many times in good ways and bad ways. I've also tried to leave companies in good ways and in bad ways. And me thinking back 20 years, I think I have quite a good idea of what it takes to hire the right people, but also to onboard them.
And now if you look back, you've been a long time a full employee, and now you have your own business. What's the best in your point of view?
I think the best in having your own business is that you are your own boss. So if you want to go right, you go right. If you want to go left, you go left. And I think always in my life, I started actually a little bit late having my own business. I've talked about this since I was maybe 18 or 20 or 22. So I always wanted to do it, but I didn't really have maybe I got some jobs I was very happy for. I felt like it was too expensive to start my own company. But I learned later in life there's many ways of starting up companies. You don't have to risk it all. The first 6 months with a collection, you can also do it in other ways.
In steps, yes.
In steps, exactly.
Or supported by some other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Who was your support team in your life? Like, which people supported you in your business? Like maybe financial or with advice?
I think for me, it was never a big issue in terms of the financial part, because the companies that I founded was not so expensive to start. It was more about the mental aspect, and I think my wife has been fantastic there, because she's been listening to me. We met when I was 27 or 28, now I'm 42, and she's been listening to this about having my own company for many years. At some point, she
stills with you. She's still
with me, yeah. And we actually got 2 kids together, and we're quite happy for each other. But so I think she supported me, and she at one point I remember she just told me, okay, you just gotta do something. You've been talking about this for 15 years.
It's the moment now.
It's the moment now, and but the step wasn't that dramatic with Outgrowth Partners, because we already founded Textile Logistics. I think Textile Logistics, even though I was not part of running the company in the start, was actually the biggest step for me, because it was my first VAT number, and these things.
Yeah, first company. It's very special.
It was very special. I remember waking up the day after we bought it from the bankruptcy and thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna die. And I will not tell the amount what we paid here, but it was very, very, very low. So it was not a lot of money, but still it felt like, this is crazy.
It's a lot of money.
Maybe, and I remember when I think back, the thing I was most afraid of was, if we got 10 or 12 customers and we didn't deliver in the fashion business where I've been in 20 years, it would be so embarrassing. So I think for many, I know for Torkel also, and for Michael and for me, it was so important to show the world that we can do this. This was really the first year was survival, and to show the world, okay, we can survive. The next year was, okay, we want to make a good result, and the third year was, okay, now we need to grow and have a really good business.
That's great.
So it was a cool journey, really.
Absolutely. And is your family, your father and your wife, are they proud on what you achieved?
I think so. I guess they are.
They never tell you?
They do. So they are proud of it, and they are a big part of it also in many ways, because I think we've been talking about, in our family, my parents and my brother and sister, back in the days when I still lived at home, we had at some point to agree don't talk about business at the table, because it was only talk about the fashion business and who is doing what and what is happening, who's bankrupt, who's making money. At some point I remember my sister and my mother saying, okay, at least my mother saying, okay, can we please discuss something else? Yeah. So we always talked about business in my home, and before I actually met many of the people in the business, I already felt like I knew them, because my father told so much about these companies and these guys and the stories in the business.
And Denmark is small.
It's really
like small. A village. It's like a village.
It's like a village in Europe, and especially in the fashion business, everybody knows each other.
Exactly.
So you have to be you have to act relatively decent, otherwise you will get in trouble, because everybody knows each other. Yeah.
And if young people are listening now to this podcast, what would be your advice for their career? What would you advise young people?
I don't know. It's difficult to give some person advice which I haven't met. But what I would say in general is that if there will be tough times, if they are ambitious and they want to achieve something, there will be tough times, and there will also be times where they think, okay, this is impossible. I'm not good enough, and I'm really bad at what I do, and this has never happened to anybody before me. And I can only say I think I have almost tried all challenges. I've tried everything. I've been out of a job. I've been out of a job for a long time. I've been fired in good jobs where I was happy. I've had to find my own way again, and so maybe today, if at some point people think that I look successful, I really want them to say, okay, maybe I have become successful, but it has been a tough journey, and for most people it will be a tough journey. So it's all about enjoying the ride instead of just only focusing on the goals. Okay. I think enjoy the ride, and don't be don't cry too much if it becomes tough, because
stand up and go on.
Things change all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What do you believe that the most important roles will be for the future? Jobs? Like what kind of jobs?
I think there will be two kind of different important roles. I think obviously one of them, which are difficult not to talk about, is e-commerce and online business. I think this will be extremely important, and I think it's important to have people who can run the business and understand this business 360 degrees. Not only the numbers, not only the technical part, but the whole thing about running online business. And then I think, especially within 5 or 10 years from now, I think it will be important to have people who can combine the knowledge from people, HR people who can say, okay, we have a digital department, online department, we have a buying department, we have a creative department. These people are very, very different people, even more different than they used to be 20 years ago. So you have to have a certain level of empathy to make these people connect and talk to each other and share knowledge. And this is where I have my hopes. I hope I can do this, because I'm not a technical guy, I'm not an IT guy. Yeah. So I think the human perspective is very important, because the generation which are 10, 15, 20 years younger than me, they are not in the same way as me, and as you probably were also educated within sales and communications. They are more educated within numbers and online and social media. So they some of them will kind of miss out the education part about communicating with people in a good way.
Just talk with somebody. Yeah. They are more on the phone than talking with people. Yeah.
I see it very often when I have meeting with young people that they start by opening their computer and putting them in front of them.
Yeah.
And I don't even know them yet. They don't know me.
Yeah.
Where I say, okay, let's leave I don't say it, but I think it. Let's leave the computer maybe for 15, 20 minutes and talk together, get to know each other. And afterwards we can talk numbers and factual stuff.
Yeah.
So I think this is where we, as a little bit more mature, like older people, in the future at least, older people have something to do with this generation. We need to help them to communicate in a professional way.
Absolutely, I agree. And then, Peter, the very last question is for a real believers person. What was your "if you believe you can do" moment in your life?
I think when I thought a little about this, and I think back in the days when I was 18 years old and I had the guts to go to London on my own, or actually with my cousin who was also there. I think that was quite brave when I look back, because I went out of school, I stopped school education and went over there, and I think I was brave, but I also think actually that my parents was very brave to let me go. I think it was quite cool to let me go instead of finish my school and say, okay, let's take a year's break, go do something that you want to do. So I think they was quite brave, actually.
Very brave, absolutely. This was episode 1 of the podcast If You Believe You Can, from Francie van den Berg and Peter Niebuhr. Thank you very much for coming all to Utrecht and for your interesting story of your career.
Thank you for inviting.
Thanks for listening, believers.